The best of the morning to you. This is Monday with Friday, preparing you for a better week ahead. I was born in Trinidad and Tobago and lived there until the end of my teen years. The majority of my close relatives and some very dear friends are still there. I studied and lived in Barbados for 2 years and then studied and lived in Jamaica for a total of almost 2 decades. I have many friends in Barbados and both friends and family in Jamaica. I have lived in America for over 2 decades and call here my home. I have friends in Canada, in the United Kingdom, in several African nations, and as a lifelong member of a religious entity that has its footprints all over the world, I view its 49 million members in 128 countries not as an organization or a religion or a denomination, but as family. If Trinidad and Tobago were to invade Barbados, or America were to wage war against Jamaica, and either country were to require my services in those wars, I shall be faced with the prospect of destroying the national homes of my family, relatives, and friends, and the requirement to even kill them. Many Canadians have relatives and friends in the United States and vice versa, as well as in the country beyond America's southern border. If an American president were to declare war on Canada, friends and relatives shall fight friends and kill relatives. Not too long ago, an American president waged war on many Americans' friends and relatives, not with his military, but with his border police, with the corruption and abrogation of international laws protecting asylum seekers, and with cruel and inhumane treatment of asylum seekers and their tender children and babies. This prospect of friend and relative going to war against friend and relative is precisely the reality that is unfolding in Ukraine right now. Before Putin's putrid offense against Ukraine began, a Ukrainian military official reported that he had to tell his own aging mother that if the 2 separatist regions in Ukraine were to begin fighting against the rest of Ukraine for Russia, he would be required to come into her town and quite possibly have to risk destroying her village and house and even be a member of the forces who could kill her. Russian citizens don't want this war. They're protesting in the streets of St. Petersburg and allowing themselves to be arrested by the thousands. Russian soldiers do not want this war. Some are turning away from groups of Ukrainian civilians who stand in their way. Some are abandoning their equipment. Some engage in friendly conversations with laughter with Ukrainians. They've been lied to about the very nature of this so-called operation. 4 days after Putin began to rape Ukraine, some of Russia's oligarchs began to feel the heat of economic sanctions and begged Putin to end the war. Among them is Mikhail Friedman, who was born in Ukraine and who, like countless Russians, has friends and relatives there. Among the despicable and deplorable Americans celebrating Putin and calling President Biden weak and Putin strong are some who show their utter ignorance, lack of education, hypocrisy, and stupidity by disdainfully and cluelessly calling Democrats communists. They are joined by some white supremacists who deplore America's diversity, citing China and Russia as places they suppose diversity to be absent as examples of what they would happily engineer America to become. I wonder how they do that. Send black people to gas chambers? Even in this moment of crisis, some Ukrainians, forgetting that a substantial portion of their gross domestic product comes from foreign students, colored people, are displaying the ugly truth that racism lurks everywhere, just as some white journalists unwittingly demonstrate their own entrenched implicit bias as they express dismay that white, blue-eyed, civilized people, not black and brown people from Iraq, Syria, Somalia, or Cameroon, have found themselves among the 85 million refugees of the world. Look, I'd like to think that the more frequently countries of the world welcome peoples from everywhere, and the more we begin to have friends and relatives and families across borders, across oceans, and across cultures, maybe, just maybe, the peoples of the world, even if not their male leaders with egos larger than brains and consciences, might become less inclined to war. And then, perhaps, the world might become peaceful at last, where we talk to one another, love one another, and protect one another. Along the way, those who perpetuate xenophobia, racism, territorialism, and white supremacy, shrouded beneath projects like America First and Brexit, might come to ask themselves while feeling foolish, how did that work out for you? Am I dreaming? You bet I am. And there's nothing that has come to reality that did not begin in a dream. Long live independent Ukraine and long live peace. I am 𝗫𝗁𝗁𝗫𝗁𝗁, and your week just got better. I'll see you again next week. Happy Monday, all the way to Friday.